Hello, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here giving you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. So it's currently the eve of November 5th, 2023 in the United States and the morning of November 6th, 2023 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, the kidnapped Israelis that are held in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, are now confirming that there are 240 Israelis that are being held by the Hamas movement and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. This number is again one less than what was reported 2 days ago. Then it was reported 241, and it is two less than was reported 3 days ago. Then it was reported 242. The IDF is not making any comment as to why this number is decreasing. There could be different speculations as to why this is happening. It is most likely that the IDF misidentified someone who may have been killed on October 7th as kidnapped. Either way, that number now stands at 240. Related to these misidentifications, the IDF today reported that Emily Hand, who is an 8-year-old girl who was sleeping at friend's house in the kibbutz around the Gaza Strip, who was reported killed 3 weeks ago, is now confirmed that she is alive and kidnapped in the Gaza Strip. She's being held there by the Hamas movement. Moving on to the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip, there were continuous rockets and missiles launched from the Gaza Strip towards various targets in Israel today, both in the center of the country and in the south. Rockets targeted Ashdod, Ashkelon, Sderot, Sha'ar Negev, and Beersheba. There were also two substantial barrages towards the Shfela and Gush Dan. There was direct hit of a rocket in Rishon LeZion. There were also missiles sent towards Tel Aviv, Chulon, Rosh Ha'ain, and there was another direct hit in Petach Tikva. In an uncharacteristic move, the military wing of Hamas, Ezeldin al-Qassam brigades, specifically released a statement relating to one of these barrages, stating that they were sent in retaliation to the, quote, massacres that Israel is carrying out in the Gaza Strip. This statement is relatively rare. The Al-Qassam brigade does not tend to reference specific barrages in the current war, so it is unclear at this moment why they specifically took responsibility for one of them. The IDF spokesperson today stated that the IDF siege of Gaza City is now complete, and the north of the Gaza Strip is effectively cut off from the south all the way to the sea. So the IDF has moved across from east to west in the Gaza Strip and is now cut off the north and the south. And there are reports that the IDF is also working to cut off the tunnels, the underground tunnels also, to effectively besiege the north of the Gaza Strip and separate it from the south. As part of the statement of the spokesperson, he also urged Gazans that are still in the north of the Gaza Strip to move southward, referencing a specific corridor that the IDF has been opening for several hours each day in order to allow these some 350,000 to 400,000 Gazan civilians in the north to continue to move south. In addition, after there were reports that the internet and communications have again fallen in the Gaza Strip, so there's again a media blackout going on right now for the third time since the war began. There are reports of substantial IDF bombardments throughout the north of the Gaza Strip, and there's a substantial amount of lighting bombs that have been seen in the skies of the Gaza Strip. So these are bombs that are meant to light up the area in the dark in order to allow ground forces to continue to invade even when it's night. The IDF has confirmed that it is increasing its attacks into the night. There was an initial report that over 100 air raids and what's called a fire belt was carried out in just 1/2 an hour in the areas of the El Shati refugee camp, Ansar, and the neighborhoods of Zaytun and Rimal in the Gaza City. However, I again remind everyone that since there's a communications blackout right now, it is very hard to know what is actually going on the ground. There are rumors circulating that the IDF may begin its invasion of Gaza City in the next 48 hours. It remains to be seen. Regarding casualties, the IDF today reported that since the war began, 30 soldiers have been killed in the Gaza Strip and over 300 are injured. The Palestinian Health Ministry is reporting that since the war began, almost 9,770 Palestinians have been killed. Of these, upwards of 4,500 are children, and there are reports of upwards of 30,000 people that have been injured. Moving on to the humanitarian situation, Al Arabi Al Jadid today reported that an Israeli delegation visited Egypt for the second time the last few days, trying to find a mechanism that will be agreed upon to enable fuel to enter the Gaza Strip. So after the last several days, when the IDF and Israel have said that they're not going to allow fuel in, then the chief of staff of the IDF said that they might allow fuel in if fuel runs out. Then Netanyahu denied this, and the United States putting pressure. It is apparent that meanwhile, behind the scenes, Israel is trying to work out some mechanism with Egypt that will allow the entrance of fuel. In addition, it was reported that during these meetings, an agreement has been reached to establish floating hospitals on the shores of Sinai near Rafah, and there are also reports that Israel has approached different countries in Europe, specifically referencing France, Greece, and Italy, in order to send medical ships to try to continuously establish these different floating hospitals or field hospitals. Finally, it was also reported that Israel has shown willingness to establish a field hospital in southern Gaza where it has called Gazans to evacuate. Continuing on the humanitarian situation, the U.S. is continuing to mount substantial pressure on Israel to continue to ease the humanitarian situation and allow more trucks and humanitarian aid in. In the U.S., there is reportedly a growing feeling that Israel has only several weeks before the United States will not be able to continue to withstand international pressure and force some sort of humanitarian respite or ceasefire in order to ease the situation in the Gaza Strip. Vice President of the United States today, Kamala Harris, spoke with several foreign leaders and coordinated attempts in order to try to increase humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. In Jordan, the King of Jordan, Abdullah, today tweeted that the Jordanian Air Force paradropped medical supplies to a Jordanian field hospital in Gaza at midnight last night. I will add that it is highly unlikely that such a thing could have been done without Israeli coordination, so it is possible that Israel allowed this to happen, or that this is some sort of exaggeration. Unclear at this point. In addition, it was reported today that 120 Palestinians were able to evacuate from the Shifa hospital through Rafah to hospitals in Egypt. These are people who were injured during the war and have been evacuated to Egypt. Moving on to the West Bank situation. There was today a shooting attack carried out by Palestinians against the Rehalim settlement. 26 shots were fired into 3 different houses. There were no reported injuries. 2 Palestinians were killed today in confrontations with the IDF. In addition, in the area of Abu Dis, a Palestinian was killed after the IDF attempted to arrest him due to information that he is actually an affiliate of ISIS. There was a gun battle that ensued during the arrest, and he was shot and killed. A total of 34 Palestinians were arrested throughout the West Bank. 18 of these are reported to be Hamas affiliates. More broadly, since the war began, 1,350 Palestinians have been arrested in the West Bank. Of these, it is reported that 850 are Hamas members. In addition, it was reported today that there is growing concern in Israel regarding the potential unrest that is going to come from the fact that 100,000 Palestinians in the West Bank who have work permits in Israel. So these are day workers who come into Israel every day and then return to the West Bank. However, since the war began, Israel has revoked all of these permits. There's growing concern that there's going to be unrest with these 100,000 workers that are now out of a job, and that Israel is trying to come up with some sort of mechanism or creative ways to give them access to money in order to try to quell this unrest. This, of course, led to a lot of disagreements within the Israeli right-wing cabinet, with different ministers saying things like, we're not going to bribe Palestinians in order to make them not go violent. Israel's trying to maybe unfree some pension money that they have. Right now it is unclear, but this is a growing concern that is reported in the different Israeli media outlets. Moving on to the north. There was an Israeli civilian today that was killed from an anti-tank missile that was fired from Lebanon into the Yiftach area. In addition, there were different rocket barrages to the north that hit Kiryat Shmona specifically. Over 22 rockets targeted that city, and there were several direct hits and fires that ensued. There were also rockets that were fired towards the areas of Metula and the entire Galilee area, and it was reported that the IDF intercepted a drone from Hezbollah. In addition, the IDF continued its retaliations against Hezbollah and different targets throughout Lebanon, and there were specific reports in Lebanon that the IDF attacked a car in which there were 3 children and a woman who were killed. The IDF, after these reports, stated that it did in fact attack that car. However, it stated that there was substantial intelligence that it is carrying Hezbollah activists, and that the IDF would probe whether uninvolved civilians were also hurt during this attack. Turning to some of the regional developments, the Pentagon today announced that the United States is sending an Ohio-class nuclear submarine to the area that has already in fact entered the area in the region of the eastern part of the Middle East. So this is, again, one level up in terms of the forces the United States is sending into the area. It has already sent in 2 aircraft carriers accompanied by different warships. Then it sent 2,000 Marines to the shores of Israel. Then it sent 300 other soldiers to different bases in the area. Then it started to send different soldiers to deploy anti-aircraft and anti-missile batteries. Now the Pentagon has announced that an Ohio-class nuclear submarine is in the area. This is all part of the ongoing deterrence against Iran and other regional actors to try to make sure the war does not spiral further. Moving on to some of the political and general trends that occurred. The president of Hungary today arrived in Israel as part of the ongoing visits that Israel is receiving from different leaders in the world. In addition, Chad today recalled its ambassador as part of a different trend that is happening of different countries that are recalling their ambassadors and severing ties with Israel as a result of the war. Secretary of State of the United States, Antony Blinken, is concluding his visit to the Middle East these days. Blinken today met with the chairman of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. According to different reports in the meeting, Blinken stated that the Palestinian Authority must have a significant role in Gaza after the war. However, there are no reports about this if this was made any more concrete. In addition, Blinken made a surprise visit to Iraq. This was unscheduled, and met with the prime minister. and after that he is currently traveling to Turkey, which is going to be his last stop in the Middle East. In addition to that, the director of the CIA, William Burns, today arrived in Israel. He met with the head of the Mossad, which is the equivalent in Israel of the CIA, and it is also reported that he is then going to meet with different delegates in the area, specifically with delegates from Egypt, Qatar, and the UAE as part of his tour of the Middle East. Al Miadin today reported that Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, met in the last couple of days with the Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei. They discussed the escalations in the Gaza Strip, and presumably Haniyeh was trying to mount pressure on Iran's leader in order to force Hezbollah to enter into the fray. It was later reported in the Lebanese network Al Jadid that Ismail Haniyeh is soon going to visit Lebanon in order to discuss the hostage situation. However, it is very likely that he's coming for more than just discussing the hostage situation in the Gaza Strip. Again, Hamas has been trying in the last several days to mount extensive pressure on Hezbollah in order to enter the fray, and this is very likely associated with Ismail Haniyeh's visits to Iran and later to Lebanon. Internally, the political situation in Israel, the leader of Ra'am today, this is the United Arab List in Israel, which is an affiliate of Israel's Islamic movement, their political party in the Knesset, demanded the resignation of one of their members of the Knesset after she stated that in the Hamas attack, no children were killed and no women were raped. After this caused major backlash, the leader of Ra'am, Mansour Abbas, stated again that he again condemns the Hamas attack, stated that their actions are completely against the Islamic faith and the principles of all Palestinians. Later, that MK, who initially said that no children were killed and no women were raped, ended up apologizing. Moving on to the speculations regarding the future of the Gaza Strip, the Minister of Heritage of Israel today, Amichai Eliyahu, who is a member of the Jewish Power Party, which is by far the most hawkish and extreme party in Israel's government, stated, and I quote, "The north of the Gaza Strip should no longer exist. Anyone raising a PLO or a Hamas flag should no longer exist." And he later added, "I aspire that after the war we will establish Jewish settlements in the Gaza Strip and walk there proudly. As for Palestinian civilians, let them go to Ireland or to the deserts." After stating this during the interview, he was asked, "Well, what do you suggest? Do you suggest dropping nuclear weapons on Gaza?" And he added, "That is certainly one of the possibilities." After this caused much backlash in Israel, Eliyahu put out a clarification on Twitter, and he stated that his nuclear statement was obviously a metaphor, and that what he meant to convey is that, and again I'm quoting, "What is needed is a disproportionate, powerful response to terror that will show the Nazis and their supporters that terrorism doesn't pay." Now, this obviously continued to cause a lot of political backlash. Prime Minister Netanyahu suspended Amichai Eliyahu from government meetings. I will add, as a caveat, that there's no actual mechanism of doing this, and if he wants to come to government meetings, he still can. Netanyahu could fire him, but he did not. In addition, Hamas spokesperson Hazem Qassam related to the statements by Amichai Eliyahu and stated that this is proof of Israel's terrorism against Gaza. And there were also reports that officials in the United States were, and again I'm quoting, pulling their hairs out in response to Eliyahu's statements. That is because the United States said they are constantly trying to defend Israel internationally, and these statements from Israel's government certainly don't make it easy. In addition, it was reported today that a top Israeli official stated that he does not see a situation where Israel does not have security control of the Gaza Strip after the war. So again, all this is telling us is that right now there is no established plan on what is going to happen in the Gaza Strip, and each of the different parties in Israel are trying to pull in their own directions. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.